Friends, Romans, cool cats and kittens, ladies and gentlemen, enemies and one and all, I've seen Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Episode 12, Let Sleeping Borg Lie. So let's talk about it. Be warned, spoilers are preparing to assimilate you ahead. Now on with the show. This sure feels like a perfect Halloween episode. Too bad it didn't actually happen to air until a couple days after the holidays. Still, this episode kicks off with our main cast all finally learning about the Diviner's insidious Starfleet-infecting virus. I say finally, but I guess in showtime, it really hasn't been that long. It just feels like forever since the show has actually been on the air, so it just kind of feels like months since this reveal, and I guess it's really only a couple of episodes. I should really take that back. Anyways, I really did like that they showed the video as a holodeck program, although I'm not entirely sure as to how the technology works behind this. It sure could have come in handy during schisms on TNG and, I guess a couple of hundred other more important scenarios, but I don't view this as a problem. I'm just fully aware that it could be a new kind of technology or something they didn't have on the ship at the time. I just wanted to make a point of it because that's what I do. They spend a fair amount of time this episode looking over the entire ship to try and find this evil program or this weapon, whatever it's going to turn out to be, to no avail, until they're finally able to locate a mysterious sealed compartment under the bridge of all places. It's what they call a subdeck, and the Janeway hologram has no memory of it, has no idea it was there, not even a clue what it's for. Kind of liking how this is very much the same Janeway that we knew, but not completely. This isn't the first time that she's been completely unaware of things on her own ship, and this will come into play later, so please put a pin in that. Transparent aluminum. It does not affect the story whatsoever. It's just a reference. It's just an Easter egg for absolutely no real in-universe reason, aside from the fact that it's transparent aluminum. I cannot up that more because it's amazing. In this deck, they're able to locate the hidden weapon. Now, quick side note here, I cannot imagine that the Diviner built this entire bonus deck into the ship, but since they never mention in this episode what the true design reason for this area of the protostar is, and why Janeway purposely has no memory of it, I just have to imagine there's something more going on, and I hope we get more clarity on that in the future, because it could be part of an interesting mystery, and it could set things up, but for now, it's just a bonus deck under the bridge with a weird symbol on it. No idea how it got there. So this leads to a small problem with the episode, and that's the Borg. They're pretty much the main component of this episode. Now, while many would argue the problem here is that the Borg have been overused at this point, that's not really my main issue with their appearance. While I originally thought I would have a problem with hologram Janeway being all too casual with the Borg, the way she was in this episode, to the point of pretty much putting up no fight when the kids decided to board the ship in order to search for the weapon, I then came back to the point that I had referenced earlier in this video and told you to put a pin in. You see, this is not our Janeway. She may look and act a hell of a lot like her, but this is not the Catherine Janeway that we've grown with throughout all of Voyager and a couple subsequent appearances in other programs. This is a hologram that's been programmed with the personality and knowledge of Janeway, but it's also been proven that she's had memories wiped, has missing knowledge, not to mention the fact that she is actually basically a glorified training program overlaid with the Janeway protocols, or whatever you want to call them. I don't doubt that she is a very capable being or any of that stuff, maybe that she's even sentient to a point. I just had to talk myself into realizing that she wouldn't have the same fears, and that she is most likely programmed with some semblance of deference to her crew, even in situations such as this. Now, while I don't have a complete semblance of what's actually happening, I do have to admit that hologram Janeway is not the real Catherine Janeway, and we can't expect her to act as such. Aside from that, my true issue here would be the fact that these children have very little problem overcoming the issues with the Borg. It also felt like they really toned down some of the scarier elements of the collective, at least a little bit. The creepy multitude of voices and assimilation imagery elements were missing completely from this episode. And I can't fault them too much, as this is definitely intended to be the children's intro into the Star Trek universe, and I'm very sure this was a conscious decision, possibly even asked for by Nickelodeon. Can't be sure of that, but it does feel that way. I thought the plotline of this was at least pretty inventive and fun. The cube was clearly suffering from some outside interference. They were infected with a neurolytic pathogen which shut down all the nanoprobes and drones. I'm assuming this is a callback or even just a direct reference to the planet Icheb escaped from. Either way, justice for Icheb. I will not let Picard rest for that atrocity. I can forgive a lot of things, but that was a premeditated act of contempt from which I will never get past. Season 3 of Picard might be great, and I'm not going to fault Season 3 for anything done in the past, but I will not forgive what they did to Icheb. Never. Back on topic, they actually introduced one of my favorite elements of the Borg here in this episode, more than just human-looking characters. I also love seeing other aliens assimilated, and I guess that probably sounded a little morbid, but I do love seeing other species in there. It makes the world feel real. It makes the Borg actually seem like a threat that's out there conquering, well, conquering is the wrong word, out there taking other species and integrating them into themselves, and that's just something I absolutely adore. After some of the Borg awoke and our crew was trying to fend them off and escape, it was a pretty clever way to show them adapting to the attacks in more than just the way we've seen before. The normal phaser frequency shields went into effect pretty early on, so Rock started using her sheer physical strength to batter them, only for the Borg to summon an even bigger and tougher Borg, a giant rhino, in order to counter these attacks. I loved that. This is also the time we get to see Gwyn use her little shape-changing weapon thingy, and she turns it into a batleth. That was inspired, something I also really appreciated. We also get to see Zero, a Medusan, dealing with her guilt, and she needs to join the hive mind in order to gain the intel that they need. I really liked this idea. Because I like the character, she's a very unique character overall. Her species is a legacy Star Trek species, which has never appeared in any series that involved the Borg before. So to have these two interact is a new thing. She's also an energy-based being. Her species has a hive mind in their history. So all of these elements are a cool kind of intertwining of ideas. And I also believe that she does have the ability to withstand assimilation. At least it would make sense based on her unique makeup. Something I really, really loved here. Upon integrating with the ship, we learned that the Medusans are known to the Borg as Species 802. I absolutely adore little tidbits of lore like this. They don't do a whole lot to actually move the story along, but it's just something, again, that makes this feel like a real populated universe in a world that I would just love to live in. Well, I don't know if I want to live in a world with the Borg, but that aside, here is where she communicated with the collective. Although it was mostly just the augmented voice of one male, I did miss the typical collective sounding voice, or heck, even the Queen, but this did catch my interest. Is this implying that the Queen of the ship isn't always female? If so, I do kind of like that idea that somebody just rises to the occasion, that they just pull a drone out of service and kind of say, all right, here, you're going to speak for us. Not sure if that's what they were implying. I might just be overthinking, but why the hell not? Eventually, our whole team was captured and left tied up in the central location. This is the point where I felt like they had really toned down this show a bit for kids. They normally probably would have injected nanoprobes as soon as possible in order to start the process of assimilation, at least I assume, and there's probably an in-story solution here for this as well. Maybe the nanoprobes were still infected with a pathogen, so they needed to wait to purge that, etc. I don't know. Either way, it works for the story, so no big deal. It's just a little something that felt a bit toned down to me. We get to see Zero in a quasi-assimilated state before she's able to snap out of it with the help and encouragement of her friends. Like I said before, her unique physiology, I don't know if we can call it physiology since she's mostly pure energy. If you can call it that, at least provided enough plausibility to allow for this, so I wasn't very opposed to that whatsoever. And then they're able to escape the cube and warp the heck out of Dodge. They have their little chat about how the Borg didn't actually know how to destroy the weapon. In fact, it came from the future, so they really wouldn't have any knowledge about that. And then they speed off to an incoming distress call. Kinda sad we didn't actually get to learn anything about who or what was sending this distress call, but I assume we'll pick that up in next episode. Now, this episode also featured a couple of different scenes back aboard the Dauntless under the command of Vice Admiral Janeway. There's no more Chakotay in this episode, however, we do get a couple references to him. In last episode, Janeway and crew had picked up the lifeless body of the Diviner who was being preserved in his stasis suit. This episode, they're going through the process of trying to revive him in order to get some answers. It is very sparing thus far, but I am very much starting to enjoy the few new characters we have on the crew of the Dauntless. The Trill character is great, the Andorian looks cool, not that we've had much time with him so far, but I think the Tellarite Dr. Noom in this episode is my favorite. They really went way above and beyond to include the contrary, argumentative Tellarite personality in a way that actually felt natural and well integrated into both the story and the universe. That really surprised and delighted me, and the fact that he was played by Jason Alexander, something I didn't really notice until the episode was over, that was also a delight. I do have to say this, the mystery and character exploration in this show are still continuing to blow me away, especially when compared to all the live-action stuff out there these days. It seems like with the limited time and probably less direct interference, since this isn't the flagship show, they're able to play in a world that feels more genuine, although maybe that's just my interpretation of things. What did you think of this episode of Prodigy? I don't think I liked this quite as much as last episode, but it was still a great time. I sure hope that we continue to move things along at a great pace, and that they don't drag out the reveals for too long. In the meantime, I just hope to continue enjoying the journey. Leave all your thoughts below and don't forget to modulate your phasers each time you hit that like button. Subscribe and hit that notification so the YouTube algorithm doesn't assimilate us all. And until next time, computer, end program.